All right, we are unmuting everybody here, guys. Welcome tonight, Sasquatch Experience, Sean Forker, Vance Nesbitt, Henry May, James Baker, and our guest tonight, Mr. Ryan Cavalline, joining us. Ryan, thanks for coming on with us tonight, my friend.
Thank you so much for having me. I bugged you long enough, didn't I? I'm like,
You
Sean,
did.
get me on the show, buddy. Come on.
You did, and I haven't had Ryan on a show since I did Beyond the Edge Radio, so that's right. How long it's been, guys. It's been a long time, but
that's almost 10 years, 7, 8, yeah.
No, you're right. It's been that, and guys, we're gonna have a fun show tonight. Ryan, of course, the producer, director, creator of the Mountain Devil series and other movies he's got coming out. I think it's Myths and Legends and Cannibals. Is that right? Is that the other?
Myths and Mutants. That'll be
Myths
out.
And Mutants.
It's kind of out. It's out on DVD, but we haven't had it on streaming yet. But it will be shortly.
Well, there you go. We're going to talk about those here in just a little bit. Vance, how you doing, bud?
I'm doing good. It's really windy here, and I am so thrilled to see Baker in the house. He's not out on assignment. He's not in a lawn chair doing his business. This is fantastic.
I don't know what the hell he is doing at the moment. Looks like he's on the Stairmaster.
But hey, get your workout when you can, right?
Absolutely.
I'm in my comfortable chair.
Are you upside? Okay, and we've got Chuckles Henry May down there at the bottom today, guys. Henry, wave to your fans out there.
What's going on?
We got everybody in the house here tonight. Well, it's been a couple weeks since we've been on. The last show, of course, we did more Uwharrie sounds from North Carolina and the Uwharrie National Forest, which was a good program. Folks continue to dial in and listen to that show and send commentary on it. And we're not done with the Uwharrie National Forest by any means, so stick around with us, folks, as we continue to visit every month or two as we go back to see what Julie has actually captured.
It's deeper into the rabbit hole, isn't it?
It is.
I mean, now this last one is going to be way into the rabbit hole and some really creepy stuff. And I was fortunate enough, I don't want to detract too much from what we're doing right now, but she had just sent me new audio that she just discovered on Friday and sent it over to me. And it's the same voice as the one that was crying for help. So if you haven't listened to either Uwharrie the first part or Uwharrie the second part, this one's really creepy. So looking forward to doing more on that.
Some really interesting audio coming out of that part of the country there in North Carolina. Aside from that, Vance is delivering some stranger than fiction news every week here on the Facebook page. So go check that out, facebook.com/Sasquatch Experience. We'll put the social media links up there right now so you get them a little early. Go subscribe and like. Because that's
and I want to add to that, Sean. Again, I keep interrupting and stepping on you. The Stranger in Fiction is exactly that. It's not everything that's Sasquatch. So it's just what's current in the news that's really weird or unusual or cryptid. All those things are wrapped in one envelope. So I try to cover everything, and we will be in on that every Monday. I'll get that posted up there for the Facebook listeners. So yeah, it's not a new thing. I've been doing it for years, but now it's exclusive to the Sasquatch Experience.
Absolutely. And starting Sundays this week, this coming week, we'll be Still Searching, my little weekly exclusive that we'll be doing here on the Sasquatch Experience Facebook page as we continue to grow content for you hungry consumers out there. And Ryan, you're a content creator. You know, people just can't get enough of the Bigfooty goodness.
They love their Bigfoot.
They do.
They do.
They do indeed. So let's get into some Bigfoot, guys. Ryan, of course, we became acquainted years ago. I had you on Beyond the Edge Radio back in the day. We talked about some of your first forays into, horror. You've, always been kind of a fun filmmaker. Then you got into the, cryptid categories. How'd that happen for you? What started your interest into making Bigfoot type movies in the genres you're in now?
We were making a lot of B movies back in the day, just horror movies, because that's what distributioners wanted, were just bad horror movies. So we would make what they wanted just to get them signed and try to make the money back. And it got to the point where I got bored doing them. And I always thought, what would be fun to do now? And I looked into Bigfoot. I'm like, wow, that's a great idea. And at the time, that was like 2009, 2008. I thought, well, Bigfoot's a West Coast thing. And I didn't realize Bigfoot's actually in my backyard. So I reached out to a lot of the Bigfoot groups, and I heard back from a few. Denny Calise was one of the first ones. Yeah, I know you know Denny. And it was like a snowy March day. He met me in Parker Dam. He's like, get in, we're going for a ride. And I thought, I'm going to die. Because if you ever met Denny, he looks like a roadie. He looks like he got the long hair. I'm like, oh, dude, we're not coming back. But he took me all over, like, my own backyard. He's like, we've had sightings here, there, everywhere. And him and I just became great friends and introduced me to the world of the Bigfoot world, really, with Eric and you, Sean, and like everyone, and just kind of grew from that. And then the more I looked at everything, I'm like, right here's the story. Like, and I just started filming. I didn't know what we were filming. We just started filming, and hopefully it came together at some point of like, this is like Bigfoot 101, really. And that's really what the first Mountain Devil movie became, was just about Bigfooting and what everyone does and how they investigate. And luckily we came across a little story out of Phillipsburg that kind of tied into everything. So that was like our first step towards just doing documentaries, because it seemed more fun to do. And actually there was an audience for it. And actually it was easier to kind of sign off to a distributioner, because they love that stuff. They're like, yeah, can you make more of that? Yeah, no doubt. Mountain Devil, the first one, Frank Peterson's story, right? Yeah. That one is done majority in Clearfield, right? Clearfield, Rockton area, yeah. Yeah, Rockton. Of course, you were there the night that me and the guys had our experience out there. In fact, I think you filmed coming back into the meadow where we were at, and you and Dave managed to talk us into staying for the rest of the night. But that was an intense night. Ryan was there. He came and he was one of our rescuers that managed to convince us to stay. That was fun. That you guys went down, set up shop down in kind of a clearing in the Rockton area, out by Kelly Cellar Road, where there had been sightings. And you and your buddies were going to camp. And Dave and I left, I believe. And then we got a phone call saying, you better get back down there, because you had some things going on, right? Yeah, we had something visit our campsite, and it had a lot of the fire going on. Yeah. And it continued after you guys left the second time. It continued on again. And when I talked to Dave later in that week, I told him, we saw this really bright flash. Did you guys put any game cameras out there? And he goes, well, we had game cameras out there, but they didn't have flashes on them. So, like, you've been out in this area, there's a lot of history. It's a different kind of place, especially when you're out there. It's remote. You wouldn't think it would be, but it's remote. Yeah. It's after you guys were there, a couple weeks later, Dave and I went down that same spot and stayed there. It was about 1, 2 in the morning. And that's when we had the tree knockings, and something was throwing rocks at us. Yeah. And I've never experienced anything like that. And that was the first time I was like freaked out. Like they weren't falling out of the sky. They were coming through the trees. And there was something off about 50 yards. And it walked across that mountain ledge right where you guys camped out. And it kind of fell. You heard it like stumble. Well, most of the time a bear isn't going to do that, or most creatures of the night don't stumble over something, but this did. And then after that, it was done. There was no more tree knocking, no more rocks being thrown. And that's the first night I ever had like the hairs on the back of my neck stand up. And I'm like, hey, do you have your gun? He's like, no, do you have yours? And I'm like, oh no. Yeah. It's just being out there in that place, in the environment, and having those experiences really changes your perspective on
when you interview a witness and what they've gone through and what they've experienced, it really puts you in a different place mentally to be in. And over the years, before we had our experience, what led us down there, of course, is earlier in that year, there was the sighting with the two people that saw it on New Year's Eve, New Year's Day. And then we were out there a little earlier that year, and we experienced rock throwing earlier that year there. In fact, Rich, our one buddy, got so startled, he punched me in the back so hard. I thought I was like going to have the chest burster from Alien. He hit me so damn hard because it startled him. You expect it, but you don't expect it, right? You're out there to try to get activity, but when it happens, it's like, holy shit, like this is really happening. Did you have any strange experiences out there when you were doing any filming, like anything with any of the crew that was out there?
We had a whole group one night out there, like a huge group, and they had experienced something pounding on, I believe, one of the car doors or walking past it. And of course, most of us were in the woods, and then we come all running back to the parking lot. And it's in the first Mountain Devil film.
So that's the one where Carrie is out there. Carrie Rupert's out there, talking, and kind of arrives on the scene of the area because she's out there with it was Elsie and Gene Roberts. Actually, they were part of the group. Gene was the cook. He made the chili pepper. And Elsie was the one that had the experience, at the car. But that is in the movie. You put that in there. And she is she does not have luck being left alone out there, because we were on a separate event and she's had something approach her too. In that maybe she's a Bigfoot whisperer or a magnet of some sort. I don't know.
She's special.
She's something, and Bigfoot really likes her, apparently, according to her.
Well, we had lights out there too. We've had strobe lights going across, and we had some coyote hunters call us, and they said something followed them out of the woods from that area too.
Oh wow!
We had a lot of weird stuff going on out there. But like a year ago, Dave and I just went out just to walk around. You know how that weird vibe feeling you get when you're in an area where there's something not right? That feeling just wasn't there anymore. It's like it just wasn't there. Like 10 years ago when we were there, it was like just something creepy about the area.
I'm told, and I could be wrong, but somebody told me that they're doing more heavily logging out there, clearing it out. That kind of sucks. And that's probably why, because it's being driven from that point. I mean, and there's other spots in Clearfield County, of course, that are, hot spots, but that particular unit out there on Rockton is pretty special. Maybe, I'm a little biased, of course, on it, but you don't just stop there. You made it down to the Chestnut Ridge and the Fayette County, Vietnam, as some of the vets call it, down there. What was that experience like, being down in that dense part of the state?
That whole area is creepy. I don't know if it's in your head or like, it's just, you get a weird vibe when you're up in those mountains. And Allman took us around a lot of areas, and you just get this weird vibe, and I can't explain it. Like kind of like when you're doing ghost huntings, you just kind of get that electric kind of weird feeling that someone's watching you. It could be in your head, and I'm not, I am a complete skeptic. Until I see one, I'll never truly believe it. But I'm hopeful of the possibility that it's true. So even when we were down in Dunbar for the last film, like those mountains are huge, and it's creepy.
I feel a little ignorant because I've been down in that area. I was just down there this past weekend, and until I rewatched Mountain Devil 2, The Search for Jan Clement, I didn't realize I was that close to the purported area of that cabin. I kind of felt like a major ass today. I'm reading this. I'm like, I'm watching the movie, and I'm like, I was just there, and I could have maybe went and looked for some of these spots or been to some of these spots. And I'm like, wow. And if you're not familiar with the Jan Clement story, then read a book, guys, because this is it's a hell of a story. And I'm just curious, Ryan, because we got a lot of time to burn. You said you're going to make some movies. What made you decide to settle on Jan Clement?
Well, actually, the first Mountain Devil movie was going to be based on the creature.
Okay.
And I had talked to the publisher, and we had gone back and forth, and we could never agree on terms. So I just kind of left it and kind of put it to the side and just kept filming with everyone and just said, let's just see what becomes of it, really. And then we came across that story in Phillipsburg, so we just kind of stuck with that.
Yeah.
So after Mountain Devil, it's almost 10 years now for Mountain Devil. I mean, that's back when we shot on DV and high 8s, and the quality shit now, it's like old news now,
You can buy it in standard definition.
It was good for its time. Now it's had its time, but when we decided, hey, I'd like to go back to the creature, and I said, let's try it one more time. Let's just get a hold of the publisher and see where he thinks now. It's been 10 years. And talking to him, and he's like, at that time, his daughter took over the publishing company, but he was still alive. So we're like, is he down to do this? And we finally got the paperwork straight, and he's like, yeah, I'll do it. So once he was on board, I'm like, no, we got to do this whole story because it's a great story that a lot of people have never read. It's back from 1976 about this guy that had all these experiences with a Bigfoot down at his cabin down in Dunbar. Mm-hmm. I'm like, and the great part about the story is it's so accurate about Bigfoots.
Yeah.
It's just crazy. Like back then, I know there was a lot of articles out back then, but it was so specific. Like the things haven't changed since back then, like the mannerisms and what Bigfoots do and don't do. And I'm just like, the new generation of Bigfooters, I don't know if they've ever heard of this story. It's so great. So I said, the real story is we got to find out who the public or the writer really was. That was the whole mystery. So if we can elaborate on the story and try to figure out who the writer was, I said that I think that'd be a great documentary for Mountain Devil 2.
And, it's been one of the greatest mysteries in the Bigfoot, field because, besides if the Patterson-Gimlin film's real or not, you've got this wonderful, elaborate story from Southwest Pennsylvania written by a science teacher of some sort, right? Whether it's an earth science or chemistry, or we can rule out Dr. Paul Johnson. He says it's not him.
Not him.
But the story has taken so many twists and turns about the identity of Jan Clement and who wrote the book, because it was a pseudonym, they say, to the point where even the publisher is, fingered as to being Jan Clement. What do you think about that, Mr. Tamichael? You think it's him?
John is a very, very colorful individual. He is a storyteller. If you met him, he was a storyteller, and he was the coolest guy. I got to spend what time I could with him. It was just he lit up when we were there. The camera was there. He was like a kid in a candy store. But talking to him, he never said who wrote it, and he was not going to give that up. But if you saw the film, he did give me a little extra that wasn't in the book of what him and the publisher or him and the writer went back out in the woods, and there was nothing there. So I don't know if that was his way of just saying let it be, or I'm just not going to say anything.
Yeah.
But if you look for the nuances, there are little pieces throughout the film. I think Steve Coles hit it pretty well.
Yeah.
If you follow Steve, I think he hit everything in the right spot.
Yeah, Steve really did a thorough investigation on this, independent of you making your movie.
Yeah.
It just kind of coincided well together doing this. But if you haven't seen the material, folks, you really got to get into it because it's a great story. Whether it's solved or not, who knows? But I tell you, the reason I like Mountain Devil 2 so much is because I think you do a great blend of documentary and I don't want to call it fiction, but I mean the material itself could very well be fiction, right? And it's a good movie in itself. I like the narration of it. I think the people that you got to play the characters, were really well. The older gentleman that plays Jan Clement isn't the narrator, though.
No.
No.
Well, he narrated a few pieces of his stuff, but I have an English guy that does a lot of my narration stuff, and I just love his voice. I don't know what it is. It's just got this English draw.
But sometimes when you see somebody and you have like a narration, it's supposed to be them, and it's not it's a voice actor doing it, not the actual actor. You can almost immediately tell. Yeah. And I would have a hard time if I didn't watch the credits all the way through. I'd have a hard time thinking that the guy that's playing Jan Clement isn't the voice, the narrator. It's done well. I mean, I really enjoyed it. I'm said it like 42 times, but in a field where you get a lot of, it was a story you could have taken a lot of liberties with that you didn't.
Right.
Right, because there's a lot of ridiculousness. Like there's a scene in the book where Bigfoot's mounting a Holstein. You know,
like, let's put it aside. You know, there was just some parts. I'm like, let's just kind of.
Yeah, but you could have went there, and you didn't, right? Which made it a better story. Because I think if you would have put that in there, one, how the hell you would have shot it, I don't know. But two, it would have taken away.
Academy Award.
It would have taken away from the story.
Exactly. And we were even pushing our limits with doing the animation parts. I'm like, but I think the animation just kind of broke it up a little bit, you know?
Yeah, and I think so many now, and I don't know when you did Mountain Devil 2, but so many other people are doing that in the documentary, scene, not just in crypto, but across the whole spectrum. I'm a Star Trek fan, so they just did one on Deep Space Nine. Yeah. And one of the parts of that series, it's called What You Leave Behind. It's an animated, like, storyboard type version of a subjective episode from a season that never happened. Yeah. And it was done very well. And I think it added to the story. There's not a lot that took away from it at all. In fact, I wanted more, especially when you start getting John talking. Like, you want to hear more from John because he is a very captivating presence on the screen, and he's got these like blue piercing eyes that when he's telling you, like, I'm looking in his eyes to see if he's being straight with me, and if he's a pretty good bullshitter. If he's not, I'll tell you that, because he seemed pretty damn sincere about what he was talking about.
I wish he just would have winked at the end of it. Just winked.
It would have been. It would have threw the whole thing off. Then
it would have, but it could have added some conclusion too.
Yeah, I mean, but there's so much of the story, because I want people to go and watch it. I really do want them to go check it out because it is worth it, especially if you're a fan of Bigfoot in Pennsylvania. This state has a hell of a lot of weird history with Bigfoot as it is. When you start throwing in the, stuff like the Jan Clement story, it gets even more elevated.
Yeah. That's something that I kind of wanted to throw out at everybody is the fact that with Mountain Devil 1, so much of this came about in the 70s, right? And there was this big explosion of Bigfoot. Now, I understand that, 67, the Patty Gimlin film came out, right? And, okay, so this is kind of a new subject. Do you think, in all of your opinions, that it's assumed that this is just a terrorizing creature because Boggy Creek came out and all this plethora of stories of Bigfoot comes out through the 70s and into the 80s, and even Stan Gordon talks about that too. It's just there was just this overwhelming sighting. Do you think a lot of it was just this knee-jerk reaction, and I use that term a lot, but a knee-jerk reaction to this newly cultural uprising of this creature, and that's why the 70s just seemed to blossom with so many sightings here, there, and everywhere?
I think with that big burst about, there was that whole, like, back in the 70s, they had that big outburst down in Dunbar, Bigfoot sightings right and left. I think they were just terrified of what it was. I mean, it was happening so much that you stir up a frenzy real quick. It's over here. These kids seeing it. They got footprints. I think that's what kind of led to the, like the Boggy Creek stuff and it being terrifying,
Yeah, if you listen to Stan, he didn't have a day off in 73 when that, that flap happened in Westmoreland County. That's not the only Bigfoot flap that's happened in Pennsylvania, by the way. It's the one that gets the most traction because it was really popular. Do you really
think it was a flap, though? That's my question. Do you really think it was a flap, or this was just normal, but now it's being brought to the attention? And in the 70s, it really grasped there. So now you're getting a lot of notification and people that are noticing what's going on in these peculiar instances, and they're starting to report it.
But I think that's where you're applying today principle of communication and information transference to back then, because back then newspaper print was, you got a paper sometimes twice a day, right? And it wasn't always the latest information. A lot of it came from news wires too, right, to fill up the rest of the pages. how much was it actually being talked about outside the people that were really interested in it? Just from a public safety standpoint. I don't know. Today, like even, talking about the influence of like Boggy Creek, well, this stuff happened before Boggy Creek was a thing.
Yeah, no, that's true.
And many people probably didn't even see the Patterson-Gimlin film out here on the East Coast until, later on. So I think your question has merit. I just don't know, if you're using today's principles of communication, I think it's kind of irrelevant because it was communicated differently back then. Now, however, you talk about word of mouth through the town, I don't know, because you still go to Southwest Pennsylvania and the culture around paranormal Bigfoot is a lot different than it is anywhere else in the state. You can go down and kind of talk about Bigfoot and be a little less guarded about it down in Dunbar or Fayette County and Uniontown, or than you can if you go up to, Williamsport, Pennsylvania. It's just because it's been so much, they've had so much activity down there. It's a lot different than it is anywhere else in the state. So I don't know. I wish I could give you a concrete answer.
No. I wasn't looking for concrete. It's just an opinion thing. But my question now to Ryan is, how surprised were you with the amount of activity in around the area in which you live?
I was shocked. Like I said, back when we started filming stuff in 2009, I always thought Bigfoot was a West Coast thing. Like I never really thought it was through Pennsylvania until I started reaching out to all the Bigfoot groups, and they're like, "You got more activity here in Pennsylvania than you probably do on the West Coast." And I'm like, "Wow!" And that was mind blowing to me. I'm like, "This is great." I don't have to go to California. So I'm like, "This is great, saving money, right?" So
it's like having a coupon.
And they're like, then I learned so much from all the groups. I'm like, especially Eric Allman and you guys. It was Chestnut Ridge was like the holy grail. It still is,
Yeah, absolutely.
So
and it's getting really exploited now too because of it, which is not necessarily bad, but like, my fear is the more people go out to these areas and become more active, are we going to lose more and more activity out in those places? Right. Kind of like what happened out in Clearfield. Bake, you were a Pennsylvania boy around the time some of this stuff's clearing up. Do you remember hearing stories in the newspaper or radio about strange? It was the 70s.
I was a toddler.
You would still remember, you freak.
Okay. I'm just when my parents taught me how to read, so I was 9. Okay.
Get a little closer because we can't hear you.
Honestly, a lot of that, as you said, it wasn't mainstream media. So unless you had a direct interest in it and went to the library and looked for it, or you went to look through the news and the strange areas of the news, you really didn't see it. And I think that's the difference between today. I think sometimes it's a little overzealous today. Like, oh my God, I went to go buy a Coke and I saw Bigfoot. I think back then it was really only in certain circles.
Unless you live in Uniontown where you can go buy Coke and see a Bigfoot.
That's right.
You've been to Uniontown. You know what I'm talking about, right? You can get mugged looking for Bigfoot in Uniontown, man. Let me tell you.
Yeah, don't get in Uniontown. That's where you get shipped.
So, in all seriousness, though, around this, like if you go to those areas where Ryan films and go to those areas, like those outskirts of these towns are built right onto the ridge. Yeah. So some of these stories that we've gotten over the years where people have a sighting in a more kind of outskirts of an urban suburban area are quite possible because of their proximity to the ridge. Like there's these little communities that are in these massive spanses of wilderness throughout. And I kind of took that for granted really until this weekend where I was driving around Greensburg down into Fayette County and all around. You're like, wow, you can go from a population center to nothing by making a right turn. So there was a report that Dave Drageson, our late friend Dave Drageson, took in like one of the parks in I think Pittsburgh proper, and people are like, well, this can't be possible. No, it legitimately can be possible if you're in the right spot. And Ryan, you've been around there. You know the geography pretty well. It's
and there's some places you don't want to make a right turn onto. I mean,
absolutely.
Those communities are. I wouldn't be driving in there all the time if I was, not from the area, because it's a lot of shady places.
Absolutely.
And
this is right on the outskirts of.
Yeah, right on the outskirts of, right next to Greensburg and all them areas. It's kind of scary.
Yeah, right.
More scary than what might be on the ridge, which and the dangers that are on the ridge themselves. There are points when you're out there hiking around, and you could be on what feels like solid ground, and the next thing you know, you're going down the side of a of an embankment. I think it was it our buddy Ron Gallucci who almost took a spill like that, going through Fayette County, bushwhacking through the underbrush there, and next thing you know, there's no ground in front of you. It's a straight drop off.
Or next thing you know, you're in West Virginia and you hear banjos, and that's just bad.
That's scary. Old Schoolhouse Road, right, Baker?
Oh my God!
We I almost rolled my SUV escaping a wrong turn scenario. It was scary.
That's a whole different show. Yeah, right.
Henry May, our friend down there in the bottom corner, like we're on Hollywood Squares. You've been a Bigfoot historian for so long. What kind of question you got for Ryan about the creature, or even the first movie that you took?
The first movie. It's about the first movie because that's the one I've seen. I haven't seen. I have not had a chance to see the second one yet. About referring to the footage that was taken by Frank Peterson. How much authentication did you have to do for all that footage, or were you able to do any authentication on it?
It was pretty bad when they gave it to us. I mean, it was beat up. I mean, back then it was hard to fix that stuff. It's still hard to fix that stuff. So I mean, we kind of did the best we could of piecing it together and reshooting some of it. But I mean, it was pretty beat up. To me, like everyone's like, "What do you think was at the end?" I mean, to me, it still looks like a mange bear. I'll be honest with you. I mean, I don't see what they saw, but it's their story. I wasn't gonna argue with them over it. They were nice enough to tell us the story, and then they were like very hesitant about, well, you can't use our names and blah blah blah, and they were real hesitant for the longest time to talk to Dave and I. And then they kind of gave us that. I'm like, I honestly think it's a bear. So, I mean, that's just my opinion, but people take it for what they want. And I just took it as a great story because it happened in Phillipsburg, which is like a stone throw away from Rockton, which was where all that activity was going on, really.
Right.
Yeah.
So for the folks that may not know, Ryan, what was the Frank Peterson story? Just an overview for people that might just be coming in.
The Frank Peterson story was, of course, that's not his real name, but it was about a guy and his buddy who went to their hunting camp, and they had his other buddy that was with them shot at what he thought was a Bigfoot, and they were kind of a little bit terrorized by this thing at night. And when they left in the morning, it was still there, and they shot at it. They didn't know what it was. Supposedly, they buried it, and that was the end of the story. On this guy's deathbed, he told his family this story. And whether it's true or not, it's like every other Bigfoot story out there. So it's, I take everything with a grain of salt, but they were just such nice people. They truly believe this happened. So, I mean, the camp was sold and was demolished, and no one really, and the other guy had already passed on. But the funny part that I think that might have something happened is these two guys quit hunting after all that. Now that I find interesting. Like, they were done hunting. They just never went back, really. So,
and how much longer did that guy live from the incident happened till he stopped hunting?
I think he was in his late 40s when that happened, and he died like in the 70s. So it was almost 30 years,
Yeah, that's a long time to quit hunting. To stop something you enjoy.
And he never told his family. Yeah, he never really told his family till the death. Until he was on his deathbed, really. So, I mean, it was an interesting story. Do I believe it?
No,
you're on your deathbed. You might have all kinds of things going on, but
Ryan, I'll make a comment to on Mountain Devil, the first one. They did a really nice job recreating at least the scenery so that you could step back into time. You did a really good job with that, and I commend you for doing that.
Thank you.
That was well done. You know, it sometimes it's a little bit hard, and I can imagine I'm not a filmmaker, but it is a little bit hard to be able to try to set it up so that you can kind of get the emotional feel for what it was like to go to the past and then, you know, discover the footprint and start taking photographs of it or movies of it. Yeah. You know, that was good. I really enjoyed that part. I like to step back and see what the emotional feel must have been like. And I think you captured that really well.
Oh, thank you. Thank you. Well, you'll love Mountain Devil 2 then.
Well, right. Exactly. Right. Exactly. Right.
That's the biggest part. Like anytime we try to find a project to do, I always want, what's the emotional appeal to this? Is it going to move me? Is it going to is it worth my time? Because there's so many Bigfoot films coming out right and left, like hand over. And it's the same stories in my opinion. I'm always trying to find something that just kind of, I don't know, keeps my attention or just moves me emotionally. Like that's a great story that has to be told, you know, and that hits me personally somehow. Like the first one does when we made it. Now that I look at it, I'm like, you know, I'm the worst critique to my own stuff. I'm like, that, you know, this should have been done like this or that, but that's 10 years ago now, and we just didn't have the equipment like we do now. Like everything's changed so much. But when we hit number 2, I'm like, that's such a great story. We're like, this relationship between this guy and this creature, I mean, that just has to be told. So I mean, it was kind of like the first one, but it was more of a terrifying event, I guess. But that emotional bond between something in that film, you just kind of gotta find it to make the story, I guess, you know.
Well, you succeed in kind of the emotional part in Mountain Devil 2 at the, you know, with the death of Kong. That was done really well. And, you know, folks are going to say, well, the costumes are kind of, I think that was the charm of it. I actually enjoyed it not being overly authentic, and it didn't take away from the story. Again, when you look at all these reenactments that they do for major TV shows and the liberties they take with the story, at least with you, I felt like you cared about the story to do it right. Yeah. And that's missed by a lot of the big stream, you know, shows. I really do. They don't care. They just want to put content out there and fill it. Yeah. They don't have, like you said, an emotional connection to it. When you watch both of the movies, you get the feels from it. You get bought in, especially I think because you know, Mr. Michael, you know, passed away. He's not with us anymore. Yeah. But you might have had like the first and only interview with him about this, and you put it on video, and now we get to enjoy that for years to come. But there's still that little nagging suspicion that, man, this could be the guy. Like it could be him. So I mean, and we're never going to know. And now we're stuck with this, with this endearing mystery forever.
He was such the coolest. He was just the coolest guy. I wish everyone could have met him. And then he would correspond with me with emails throughout the whole process. And I sent him the poster of his book cover, but we changed it to Mountain Devil 2 and had the Bigfoot. And he gave me the greatest compliments on it. And then I was done with the film. We were just doing like the trimming parts and fixing this and that. And literally, I would have had it done in about a month. And I told him, hey, we're almost done with this. I'm going to bring it up and show it to you. And his daughter actually called me and said, hey, listen, I got to tell you, Dad just passed away. And it like broke my heart. I was at work, and I'm like, I emotionally lost it because I'm like, I wanted him to see his work, you know, or you know everything. I just wanted him to see it, you know. And he never had the chance.
Yeah, his family,
and they were so grateful about everything. They really were. To this day, I still talk to them when I can.
That's awesome.
But they were cool.
Well, at least there's a legacy that lives on, so that's a positive.
And then a couple months later, Dave passed away, which it was like a double whammy. You know, it sucked. But so there's a lot of emotion in those films, even if you don't know the background of it. There's making them in the stories. They were very emotional.
I think the you know kind of benefit of it now is doing this, and folks can go back and kind of read the story, watch the movie, put it all together, and they get to relove these characters that you know some of us have been really into for 20 plus years. I mean, you had Brian and Terry Seach in there as well. You had Eric Altman on there. When it comes to the Pennsylvania Bigfoot, those guys, it doesn't get much bigger than that in terms of the researching, in terms of longevity of researching. And then you got my buddy Dave Rupert in there, who is, I don't know how anybody can't be charmed by Dave Rupert. He's such he really is. He's such a down to earth. He is. Yeah, he's a hell of a good guy. He's a good dude, and he fits in the well. The only thing that was kind of out of place was his real tree, camo hat, and that one thing.
It was one of those oops. We can't go back and reshoot it. Just let it go.
But I was just like, damn it, Dave. Damn it. But it was good, and he always fits his roles in well. But you got some more projects coming up. Talk to us about those a little bit.
We just, like I said earlier, we just released Myths and Mutants, which is kind of like a folklore on all the weird stuff in Pennsylvania, and you'll see Dave acting in this film, which is pretty impressive stuff.
Nice.
Everything from albino cannibals to the Green Man, which is down by Pittsburgh more, and all kinds of just weird stories that no one really knows about. And they know about it, but it's not like major. And we do our little twist on it, kind of make it into a little B-move horror movie a little bit.
Mm-hmm.
So that's done, and we're just waiting for streaming really. And I'm already working on Mountain Devil 3, which is a 180 of all the other two. It's a complete different monster really, because we're gonna hit more of the Bigfoot alien connection. Because I'm running out of places to go. You almost got to go to space now.
Yeah,
we're gonna do some aliens.
I said we'll get a hold of Elon, see if he can help
Wow.
Yeah, but I mean, even in the going into the high strangeness, the weird stuff, you could do multiple movies on that in PA. Like it.
I'm hoping this is the last one.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, every time you finish up, you find something else, right?
I do. Yeah, we're I said that on the last one. I think we're going with Bigfoot for a while, and then we ended up. Well, let's do 3.
Yeah. Bake, what were you going to say?
Oh, nothing.
No, it was. Yeah, go ahead.
About the albino cannibals, do they only eat the white meat?
They're going to be selective at this point.
There's your contribution right there.
And I'm telling you, you need to call the third movie Tres Diablos Tatas.
I'll ponder it.
Okay. It's an adult show, but that's okay.
Well, thank God.
Ryan, I wanted to ask you, Ryan, with all the cryptids that have been thrown at you, you would take an interest in. Do you think any of them are maybe cross-referenced? Maybe it's a frogman that people, and now it's being called something else. Have you come across any of that this might be the same thing that these people over here saw?
I think the whole Dogman thing is basically Bigfoot. I don't see the difference. I know I've argued with other crypto guys about this. I'm like, it's the same thing. To me, it's the same thing. It's a Bigfoot.
That's
and they're like, fair. You should do a movie on Dogman. I'm like, nah, it's just another Bigfoot movie.
No, that's very fair, and I appreciate that.
Yeah.
There has been a lot of distinctions going, but the legs were backwards. And I'm like, okay, dogs' legs are not backwards. Okay. You have to understand physiology first.
Yeah.
But, okay, there's some questions to be at least answered in that. But I'm kind of leaning the same way you are, Ryan.
Yeah.
I think it might be another Bigfoot, just a species that's a little bit different, just like humans. We don't all look the same, thank God. We don't all look the same, but it's very possible. I don't know the answers, believe me, I don't. But that's a certainly acceptable question.
I think they're just skinny Bigfoots. I don't know.
No, that's fair.
And I share that with you, Ryan. I've said that many times. I think it's a just misidentification of a Bigfoot. And when you look at great apes, and you look at there's diversity in that as well, right? And there are some, mandrills have a snout, baboons have a snout. Like, it's not outside the realm of reason to think it could just be a misidentified Bigfoot, or also reside in the realm of fantasy and folklore, as we happen to get in these things as well. But so many people also, Ryan, say it's very man-like, and it's more man than monster.
Right.
Well, the Bigfoot community is a different community.
Right. new reports that come out, and I understand who's involved in all of this, but with 5 different labs that did the scat sample of DNA and the hair samples of DNA, was confirmed at least that it was well over 99.9% uncontaminated, but the DNA strand showed half of it being human and the other half unknown. And then the whole zoological society steps away from it because they don't want anything to do with it, because there is no answer now. And I don't know that they want to be tied into something that's that crazy. But at least we have that much, and this is relatively within the last 6 months that at least this data is coming back from 5 different biological labs.
Okay, I'm going to hold you up there because I'm going to ask a question. Where the hell is this data coming from? What? I've not heard any. This is breaking news
coming
to me.
From what I understand, and now mind you, I just found this out on Sunday, so I haven't been able to dive too deep into this yet. But it was 5 different universities, biological lab universities, that researched this DNA that was all from 4 different sources. And they all came back to conclude the same thing. That's what I found the most fascinating, is that half the DNA strand showing human and the other half is showing something that they cannot identify. And that's just how they left the report. Then the Zoological Society got involved, and they said, we don't want anything to do with this. They were all on board with trying to figure it out. But then as soon as it comes back as what the reports were from these professors that did this analyzation, saying, we don't want any part of this. Once I dig into this a little bit more and see if I can get more information, of course, I'll be sharing it on Sasquatch Experience. But yeah, this is relatively new.
Go ahead, Baker.
I thought for sure he was going to say that it was researched by 2 guys from Georgia.
I was going to ask if they're using the same lab that the Maury Povich show uses.
You are not the big
You are the father.
You are the father. Henry's had practice at that. Henry, are you the one doing?
Yeah, right.
Henry, do you know what Vance is talking about there? Is this familiar with you?
I'm not familiar with that. Now, I've been reading Haskell Hart's book about the Ketchum study.
Yeah, this isn't Ketchum, but go on.
Okay, this is not the Ketchum study. Okay.
No. Texas University was one of the laboratories. I'm going to have to go back and take a look. I'm sorry, I didn't prepare for that because I didn't think we would be talking about this tonight. But
me either.
Texas University was one of the biological labs that were doing this analysis.
Where the hell did they get the samples from?
Names that are not coming off the top of my head right now. Like I said, I wasn't prepared for any of this, so I'm sounding like an idiot.
Next time you bring up a subject, do your homework.
Say, shut up, Vance.
Teacher doesn't like that.
Right now.
Teacher does not like that. All right.
Right.
Well, now you know, Ryan. Now you can do a whole new documentary on Bigfoot DNA studies. Right.
I'll just wait till you have it all and just send it to me. That makes life
I'll send it to you.
Give you the
Ryan.
notes.
Absolutely. Yeah, we'll send it to you, and you can make your own in the basement. So there you go. All right.
You're gonna make your own DNA. Never mind.
Make dino DNA. Make your own creatures in the basement.
DNA.
Yeah, that's right.
We're making DNA here.
Here we go. The samples came from Samples Are Us. I love that. Thank you, Brian, one of our executive producers. The Acme of DNA. So, Ryan, you've been in this field now for a while. You've done investigations. So, what's your thoughts on this? You think there's a lot to this Bigfoot story? Do you think it's just a bunch of myth perpetuated by people who have nothing better to do?
Well, it's a different world.
It is.
Personally, the people I have talked to and stuff we have gone out and investigated, I'm still always going to be that hopeful believer. I'm hopeful it's possible that a Bigfoot exists. Mm-hmm. Do I think they're highly intelligent? Yes. And I have my own theories to all of it, but there's a lot of people out there that it's hard to weed through some of that stuff. But I'm not trying to be mean, or I'm not trying to say the wrong thing here, but I mean, we work with a lot of people that think they're experts, and I'm thinking, we don't even know what this is. How can you be an expert?
No.
I'm not. I just go out. I don't know. Or there's the computer investigators. They don't even go in the woods. I mean, it's tough to really. It's tough sometimes to find the silver lining with some of it, but deep down, I'm just a hopeful believer. Until I see one, I'll never truly believe, but I am hopeful. What I've experienced and some things people I've talked to, yeah, I think there's something to it. It's kind of dumb to be narrow-minded about it.
I think the longer I spend in this myself, the less I actually know.
Yeah.
The moment you think you know something, you don't really know anything at all, and it's a game that changes, and the rules change all the time with it as well. And I guess we should be excited about things like DNA studies, like history has shown they prove nothing, right? And until we have something to type it against, like DNA studies are still going to come back with a mystery, an unsolvable portion of that's unknown. So we could spend all this money and time collecting, but unless they either start typing these samples against the other unknown samples and start getting some information, or they, some old lady coming around the bend in Oregon smacks one with her truck and has the Harry and the Henderson scenario, we're kind of out of luck.
That's the only way. We need a dead body or a live one, which that isn't going to happen, but a dead specimen. And until then, I don't know.
You're an expert in video. One would say you make enough movies and you play with the equipment enough.
I know
the number. Hey, it's better than what I can do. When you hear people make the comment that video evidence isn't good enough and everything comes out blurry, what's your retort to that?
Half the time people don't realize they're filming in a dense forest area, and what you're seeing is probably moving. And you got that camera, it's hard to stay focused and center it, and it's moving this way or that way, and you only have a couple seconds of what you're seeing. Yeah, that's what you're going to get. Patterson Films is the best evidence that I've ever seen. That is a Bigfoot, in my opinion, walking. It's pretty clear. It's the best you're going to get, but I mean, anyone can Photoshop nowadays. Adobe stuff's cheap. I can make a whole fake thing real quick, but I mean, it's easy to do. It's getting easier and easier. A kid on an iPhone can do it now, So until we have a specimen in front of the news crew saying, this is what just happened, video stuff, I mean, a lot of it, I just kind of, it could be a Bigfoot, but I'm not saying it's not, but it's easy to fake. It's easy to just blow it off as, it's another blurry Bigfoot. Well, yeah, I mean, go run through the Alleghenies and try to film something solid. You can't.
I'm thinking it's going to come right down to like a King Kong thing where you have to have it chained up in front of a theater and everybody gets to witness it.
How'd that work out?
And that's just not going to happen. No. I'm sorry, Sean. Go ahead.
How'd that work out?
Not well.
Not good.
Right. But just even, this weekend I was out at night trying to take pictures with my iPhone in night mode. And you have to hold that phone completely still for like 5 seconds for it to get the information it needs through that lens into the processor to take that photo for those awesome night shots. And it was really hard to do, to keep your hands still. And that's just in a perfectly normal scenario, let alone seeing something unexplained that you just, couldn't identify for the first time. In imperfect lighting conditions and with, fast motion. It just, the technology's there, but it's still far from perfect. And even if somebody had an SLR camera, right? Absolutely. And how many people really know how to? I get more are becoming more, adept at using that, but we're still so far from the mark. But we're going to give it our all each and every time we go out there. We're going to give it our best.
Yeah.
Ryan, I got another
any final
question
thoughts for everybody here as we near towards the end? Oh, okay.
No, just a final question. How much money have you spent on a drone just to take aerial shots?
I've gone through 2 drones.
Nice.
I lost one in Dunbar.
Okay.
Down in the mountain. It flew off of the mountain, never came back. And
I'm sorry.
So I'm probably $2,000 in a hole with drones. But
Wow.
you're shooting down in the forest. You're not. It's hard.
Right.
You can't see what you're shooting, even when it's in the fall time.
Mm-hmm.
I truly believe Bigfoots are very intelligent. They can hear humming. I think they smell extremely, extremely well. Like they're bears almost. They know we're coming. They know an hour before we're coming.
Right.
To know to get out of the way.
Yeah.
That's just my 2 thoughts,
No.
2 cents, 2 thoughts, whatever. So,
No, I appreciate that. And I think
it works.
Yeah.
Okay,
you were going to ask, Sean.
Sorry, Vance. We got a little overlay going on.
That's your fault.
No, it's just that we got that delay going on here, and it's just causing a little bit of a hiccup. Vance, Ryan, thanks for taking the time and spending it with us tonight and bearing with some of the difficulties. It's our pleasure. We'll get you on again. You got a lot of insight going on here. I think your films are phenomenal. Mountain Devil 2 is going to go down as one of my favorites, really. And I'm not saying that because you're on here. I really liked it. You did the story justice. I can't wait to see the next one with the albino cannibals, Dave's acting debut, and
incredible.
This next installment of the Mountain Devil. Guys, any final thoughts for Ryan?
Well, first of all, thank you for coming on.
Thank you.
And then I've got the Fine Young Cannibal song stuck in my head.
Oh, that's what you got out of all of this, Baker.
No, I got so much out of this, but only some of it can be but it's really nice that you took the time to take that man's story and give it the proper it needed. And you did it in a way that, and what I didn't watch the movie yet, but I'm sure Forker will show it to me at some point in the next couple of days. But the thing with it is I can just tell by the way he explained it and the way you explained it is that you went for the content and caring about the story compared to the drama and the visual. And that's what we need to see more of in the long run, because if you don't do that, then you get ghost hunters where they just have a girl in a tight shirt that her job is to scream.
Right.
Nothing wrong with that either. I mean,
no, it's not wrong.
No, but if you're trying to be taken seriously, Becky can be quiet for 20 minutes while we talk about science. Okay,
Hey, this is the 21st century. Becky can be talking about the science now, Baker.
Well, yeah, sure. But she doesn't.
Okay.
She can wear a tight shirt too. Yeah.
Absolutely. Henry, what do you got, brother?
Just thank you very much for coming on. I enjoyed this. This was good stuff.
Absolutely. Thank you for having me. I appreciate it.
Yeah.
Vance, final words.
Final words? Goodbye, cruel world. There's my final words. No, thank you, Ryan. I greatly appreciate it. And I do appreciate what you have done with at least your productions. I enjoyed watching it just like Sean did. I enjoyed watching it. I've learned a lot out of it. And then I sit here and scratch my head going, wow, was there really a body buried here? I don't know. I'm kind of like you. I'm like, I've heard so many stories that the body was buried and yet we've never uncovered the buried body.
Exactly.
And who's to say? Who's to say? But I greatly appreciate you coming on here and sharing some of your thoughts, and kudos to you and great success in the future with whatever endeavors you choose to do. Yeah, there you go.
I appreciate you guys having me on and talking. I totally appreciate it. And I won't bother Sean for 8 years.
No, we'll get you on again sooner than that. Ryan, where can folks find out more about you and your movies?
Website www.legendhunterfilms.com, and of course Facebook is the place to be. I mean, you can get it, and all of our films are on Amazon.
You can get them, and they're really affordable. There's no excuse to not buy them, folks. They're out there.
Try to keep them as cheap as possible.
I live by that motto.
You're battling all the other Bigfoot films,
Right.
So many.
Right.
And again, we go from a time where there aren't many to now it's an oversaturation of these, but I still liked them a lot. Folks, find out more about us, Sasquatch Experience, on Facebook and Instagram, Squatch EXP on Twitter, and I'm learning that we're going to be TikToking soon as well. As you can see the joy on my face, but you know what? We've got to grow with the times and get with the new audience. We had a MySpace. We had a MySpace once upon a time.
Yeah, TikTok.
You still do.
It's still out there. I think we all still have them out there. Maybe not you, Vance, but
I miss Tom from MySpace.
I miss Tom. Yeah, what
Tom
happened
was my
to Tom?
first friend.
Tom wasn't as controversial as Zuckerberg. Okay,
No.
Tom was a good dude. Tom minded his business and shut up. That's
right.
None of your business, Tom.
That's
Just
right.
back to looking at your TV.
There you go, folks. Our guest tonight, Ryan Cavalline. You can find out more about him, legendhunterfilms.com. We got Vance Nesbitt. Vance, where can folks find you?
They can find me under the palm tree, like I said last time, but on Facebook, Vance A. Nesbitt. That's probably where I put most stuff, but also over on Instagram, Vance_Nesbitt_NRML.
There you go. James Baker, where can folks find you if you want them to?
Usually, if you can find Forker, you'll find me not far behind.
That's true. And as we learned from recent experiences, I'm always in the front. Henry, where can folks find you?
Well, I can find me on Facebook under Henry B. May the 4th.
Belated birthday here from your friends.
Happy birthday, Henry.
Thank you.
Happy birthday! Should we sing?
No, I will
No,
mute
God,
you.
no. With
Oh,
the
we'll,
five of us,
we'll TikTok,
no.
but we won't
That's not
sing.
gonna
to
work.
him.
No, we'll sing them on the TikTok.
Okay.
Oh, merciful good Lord.
That'll be
All
next
right.
year, Henry. You'll have to wait a year. Right.
Folks, if you're still with us, I'm Sean the Fork Chop Fork. You can find me everywhere. I'm my name at Sean Forker. James Baker's going away. And good night, James. And well, you know where to find us. We'll see it. We'll see you in 2 weeks. We're going to be talking about the Sasquatch documentary from Hulu. Sasquatch, Weed, Greed, and Murder. We'll be reviewing that one for you on the 12th of April. Have a happy Easter for those of you who celebrate. To the rest of you, come join us on social media. We got a lot of cool stuff popping up this weekend. Thanks for listening, folks. Henry,
Stranger Than Fiction news.
and Vance developed Tourette's. Okay, good. All right, Henry.
Y'all be good or be good at it.
There you go. There you have it, folks. And of course, I'd be remiss if I did not thank our executive producers, Tommy Hoke and Brian Corbin. Thanks for your support each and every week. Good night, everybody. We'll see you next time.
Good night.
Good night.